Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, I've got Dynasty sells for you. We started the week with Dynasty buys. We're ending the week with some Dynasty sells. So, I've got 8 of them coming up just after this. So, go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, welcome in, everyone. Happy to see you all this morning, but this is a pre-recorded episode. Full disclosure here, heading out on a little hike today in the North Carolina mountains, so wish me safety. But just wanted to kind of recharge a bit after pumping out that rookie guide, available now at playerprofiler.com/rookie-guide. Incredible work over there. Seriously, go check out that rookie guide. So, with all that being said, I've got Dynasty sells for you. So we'll start with quarterbacks, then we'll go running backs, then we'll go wide receiver, then we'll go a tight end. Got at least one at each position for you guys. So the first quarterback I'm going to say to sell, this is probably sacrilege at this point in time, but it's the 101 in drafts and or Caleb Williams really is what I'm saying to sell. I just think that right now, when you look at the price of Caleb Williams, QB7 on Keep Trade Cut, and QB8 on Player Profiler, that he's being priced in as if he's already succeeded. And I just don't think that's really fair. I think that you should be valuing someone behind some of these quarterbacks that have already proven themselves. Right now, if you go and look at some of the quarterbacks behind him on rankings, you see Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, even Anthony Richardson is below him on Keep Trade Cut rankings. And I just think that you could take Caleb Williams, you could take that 101 and get an actually proven quarterback on a really good offense that we know is really good with all of the ones that I named. We're projecting the Bears to be good. We're projecting Caleb Williams to be good, but his price is as if he is already good, and he just hasn't proven yet. Not saying he will or he won't, but I think right now you could get in or you could sell him for a really good amount and potentially even buy him back later if you really do believe in him. But I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of room for growth right now. Like, he's going to have a CJ Stroud type season, and I don't really know if CJ Stroud type seasons really come around that often. So I'm comfortable selling Caleb Williams. I'm comfortable selling the 101 because you can get a true haul. You can get a proven quarterback with a nice cherry on top. So do it. The next quarterback I'm going to sell is Dak Prescott. This one's a little bit tougher, but right now he's sitting at quarterback 11 at Player Profiler and quarterback 15 on Keep Trade Cut. He is the only quarterback over 30 years old inside the top 20, which just shows and reiterates how much the dynasty markets value quarterbacks, well, age in general, not even just quarterbacks. I know quarterbacks can play a little bit longer, but still that 30-year-old number kind of puts a sour taste in people's mouth, and yet that's not necessarily the case here with Dak Prescott. Right now, at that value, you could tier down. I'm putting quotes around tier down because I think that some of these quarterbacks are even better. But Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, true tier downs at Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Bryce Young, Will Levis even maybe. And if you're a win now team, you want to stay in the old quarterback market, you could go explore with Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford, see if you could get a nice cherry on top of those guys as well. Because at the end of the season, you might get the same amount of points. And it's possible that Dak Prescott isn't even on the Dallas Cowboys next season. There's talk that they're kind of in different areas when it comes to restructuring his contract, extending his contract that expires at the end of 2024. That it's possible they move on. I think right now that they, keep Dak Prescott. That's generally how franchises do things. But given his injury history and given how much money he's going to command, it's possible that he explores that market and someone else, kind of takes him, like what happened with Kirk Cousins this year, where he just got kind of poached. He missed 5 games to injury in 2022. He missed 11 games in 2020. And I just think that you could use him right now and really go one of which ways. I mentioned the tier down, but you could probably tier up with him as well, especially to a quarterback like Justin Herbert, for example, where people are a little bit off on, or maybe Anthony Richardson, if the owner thinks that they're a little scared about his injuries. I mean, you're obviously going to have to add, but Dak Prescott gets you a seat at that table. And I just don't necessarily think he should at his age. Again, the only quarterback over 30 years old that's inside the top 20. Jared Goff's 29, and he's right at number 20. So again, just age is valued a lot in Dynasty, and that's not necessarily the case here with Dak Prescott, who's still, a top quarterback option for Dynasty, despite being over 30, and despite the future being unknown for him in Dallas. So I'm comfortable moving on from him, and I think that you can get a lot of different good quarterbacks with nice pieces on top, or as I mentioned, tier up with him as well, which is a nice option. So those are my two quarterbacks. It's a tough market right now. I'm more so on the buys when it comes to quarterbacks, but those are two that I think I'm comfortable selling at their current price. Buckle up for running backs because I'm getting hot here. This is Devon Achane. I love Devon Achane. You guys know that. You can go back to last year's episode post-draft, the Monday after the draft, and I was just astonished at the Dolphins getting Devon Achane. I was excited for that landing spot. I thought it meant a ton of fantasy success, and we saw it. And that's why he's RB5 right now at Player Profiler and RB7 on Keep Trade Cut. But all of the concerns that we had with Devon Achane were his durability. We were worried about his size and his ability to stay healthy at the NFL level, and he proved why we should have those concerns last season. He missed 6 games, and in another 2 games, played less than 10% of the snaps. He sprained his shoulder in the preseason. He sprained his knee in week 5. He played through bruised ribs and toe soreness from week 14 through the end of the season. This guy clearly does have the health issues that we were all concerned about. And I know he's electric when healthy, and you're probably going to regret not having Devon Achane in those weeks that he does pop off. But plain and simple, we're not going to know when those come. We're not going to know how healthy he can be. And we don't even know that the Dolphins won't try to get another running back in this year's draft. And they brought back Raheem Mostert. They just extended him. So that guy's still there. And they've proven that they like to use a committee because even Jeff Wilson and Salvon Ahmed last season were getting some carries and usage. So I just think that Devon Achane at RB5, RB7, you could use Achane to get Bijan Robinson right now, or you could just tear down again with quotes to Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker. And if you want to win now, you could go after like Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. Just the choice is yours with this player. The world is your oyster, and you could get some true value for a guy that might not even play half the season next year. So I love Devon Achane. In best ball, I'll probably be drafting him. But in terms of a dynasty asset, I think that the value is at the ceiling. I really can't imagine it going much higher. I really do think he's always going to have those injury concerns, and he's probably always going to have someone else in his backfield. And so I'm selling Devon Achane while I still can at top of the market. My next 2 running backs, I'm not as confident in, and it's more so just I don't know if their role is going to be the exact same next season. So I'll start with Rachaad White, and this is tough because his value isn't like necessarily top 5 like Devon Achane is, but he's still a top 10 asset. He's number 12 on Player Profiler. Number 9 on Player Profiler and 13 on Keep Trade Cut. And that's about right? I mean, he's been really, really successful. He was number 2 in carries last year, number 4 in reception. So he's proven that he can be a true workhorse, true bell cow, and take all the volume and do well with it. He was an absolute phenom in PPR leagues, stayed healthy pretty much the whole year, I think the whole year, and has been really good both the years in the NFL, really good out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And that's a lot of what you want in a fantasy running back. And so, selling Rachaad White right now isn't necessarily a big sell. But I think you can and not feel that upset about it. I think what I'm comfortable saying about Rachaad White is he's not going to go much higher. I do think that this is probably his ceiling. And I also think that the Buccaneers are primed to go back to the well at running back. Last year, they tried with Sean Tucker. It didn't really work out. Chase Edmonds also couldn't stay healthy there as well. So I think that they might try to draft a running back this year, especially since the rest of their roster is locked down. They got Baker Mayfield, they got Mike Evans, they got Antoine Winfield. So I think that they're primed to take a running back, whether it be 3rd, 4th round, maybe 5th. And I'm not saying this is going to be a guy who truly pushes Rachaad White for any meaningful work, but still at least takes something away to where he's not getting that 75% opportunity share and maybe closer to 60, 65. And a lot of his stuff just came from volume last year. And so I would just hate to see even 10% of his volume go away. And if it's a good running back, I like a lot of the running backs in this draft class, then it could be worrisome. I do think that the Buccaneers will probably take a chance there because they have the luxury of being able to, given the rest of their roster is kind of already locked down. So I think if you have Rachaad White and maybe another running back, I think that you could probably move on from Rachaad White. And even if he's your main running back, you could probably figure out something, whether it be tier down or see if you can move up with him as well. But I think you'll be happy moving on from him at his current price point. I don't think he's going to get much higher. He probably wouldn't lose much value either, but I just think that this is just a nice, fine sell opportunity. And kind of the same for my next running back, James Cook, who right now is RB10 on Player Profiler and RB11 on Keep Trade Cut. But I just think that right now he's gained a lot of hype from the Stefon Diggs trade, projected to get a lot more targets than he did last year, which was already plenty. But, I think that the Bills have proven now that they don't view James Cook as a bell cow. They think that he's awesome, and they think that he should get the primary amount of shares, the more shares. Why can't I think of the actual word for this? But more shares than any running back on the team, but still not a true bell cow. We saw last year Latavius Murray getting snaps, Ty Johnson getting some snaps. I feel like there was even like someone else that kind of came in towards the end of the season for no real reason and was getting snaps. Damian Harris before the injury. Like, they didn't want to use James Cook by himself. Leonard Fournette, not as much, but still. And so I think that, while the Bills do have some holes on their roster, they could also be drafting a running back. And again, James Cook is still going to get his and still be explosive. I mean, he's one of the best running backs when it comes to breakaway runs, breaking tackles, evaded tackles, all of that stuff. Super explosive. Great in the pass game. Love it. And again, it's just like Rachaad White in that it's just, I don't think his value is going to get much higher. And especially now with the Diggs trade hype, I think that this is a window where you might be able to get a little bit of an overpay because, again, I mentioned that all those running backs got a bunch of snaps last year, but he also was only 18th in opportunity share, only saw 62% of the opportunities in that Bills backfield last year, which is good. Again, that's the majority of the shares in this backfield, but just not enough for me to think he's a top 10 asset. And when I'm looking at some of those other running backs around him, like a Kenneth Walker or Josh Jacobs, even going further down to like an Alvin Kamara, I just think that there's some value to be had there. And with his youth and right now being one of the main weapons of this offense, I think right now is the time to capitalize that and move on from an asset like James Cook. So those are my running back sells, my quarterback sells. For wide receiver, got a couple for you. They're both old. We'll start with Tyreek Hill. And I know this is another one that people are just like, what the hell do you mean you're selling Tyreek Hill? He's a beast. I mean, like, he's a cheat code when it comes to fantasy points. And all of those things are true. But I notice something very different in the way he's valued, obviously because of how good he is, compared to other wide receivers his age. Just like Dak Prescott was the only quarterback over 30 inside the top 10, Tyreek Hill is the only wide receiver over 30 inside the top 30. And he's wide receiver 12 right now on both Player Profiler and Keep Trade Cut. And that's just so high the value an older wide receiver. And I know that he obviously has shown zero signs of slowing down, and I don't really expect him to. But I think that you could take Tyreek Hill and get another old wide receiver who also hasn't declined too much, like a DeAndre Hopkins, a Cooper Kupp, Stefon Diggs, a Mike Evans, a Devontae Adams. You could go really far down, not lose much production, but get lots of value on top of them. And you could even take Tyreek Hill right now and probably get Jalen Waddle or use him to tier up. You could probably, like, Tyreek Hill probably get you a seat at the table at like the Justin Jefferson trading room right now, which is just unbelievable. I just think at his age, even though he hasn't shown any signs of decline really, that at some point he will. And why not capitalize while he's still valued as a wide receiver one? I know it's hard to do, but I think that you could do it. I, for example, actually did trade Tyreek Hill, and I went the running back route. I got Josh Jacobs plus, and I'm very happy with it. I think that I won't miss him too much next season. Maybe a few games when he scores 40 points, but I think in the long run, I'm going to be very happy about moving on from him while he was still an elite dynasty asset. And again, I know it's hard, but I think that you get a lot of value from him, whether you tier up, tier down, or even just go get his teammate, Jalen Waddle. I just think that you'll be happy with it. And there's just such a discrepancy in his value compared to other wide receivers at his age. And another wide receiver at his age that I'm going to sell is Stefon Diggs. And this is, a little bit different. I'm not just going to say like take Stefon Diggs and sell him for like a draft pick or something. But I think that you can use Stefon Diggs right now to get Nico Collins, to get Tank Dell. And I think that that's an incredible move, whether or not you're competing or rebuilding. Of course, if you're rebuilding, you love to get the younger asset. But I think both Nico Collins and Tank Dell have plenty of opportunity to score just as many points, if not more points, than Stefon Diggs next season. I don't think it's a clear lock that Stefon Diggs will even lead this team in targets. CJ Stroud clearly likes Tank Dell. Literally asked the team to draft him. He grew an established connection with Nico Collins toward the end of the year that was really, really good. And so I don't think he's going to want to go away from that for a guy that's only a rental for 1 year. And I'm not sure what happens for Stefon Diggs after that year, because then he's going to be 31 years old and notorious for not being a great locker room presence. So I don't think that the value for Stefon Diggs is going to stay this high for that long. And I think that you could use him now to swap for Tank Dell or Nico Collins, because a lot of those owners are scared, and I don't think they should be. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not sure what I'd want for a draft pick. I'd probably still want like a first or at least something good. Maybe go get Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins plus, or something like another old wide receiver if you want to stay in that market. But again, Stefon Diggs valued now pretty high after that trade, and I think you could capitalize on that hype. So I'm doing it. I'm selling Stefon Diggs and especially trying to target those other Texans receivers, or maybe even seeing if you want to get a running back, maybe get like Joe Mixon plus. I think that could be an interesting avenue as well, but I think it'd be worth it and I think it'd be fun. So selling Tyreek Hill and Stefon Diggs at wide receiver. And finally, my last sell for you guys is another player that I think you could get some extra value on as a result of the hype from the Stefon Diggs trade, and that is Dalton Kincaid, the Buffalo Bills tight end, who right now is tight end 4 on Player Profiler, tight end 5 on Keep Trade Cut. And the hype is just huge for him after the Stefon Diggs trade, where I think that you could get a really nice overpay. People are projecting him to lead the Bills in targets next season, thinking that they're now finally building the offense around him. And I'm just not so sure. I do think that the Bills will be bringing in another weapon. And so I'd like to sell Dalton Kincaid before that happens. And I just think you could. I think you get a really, really good return from him. You could probably even use him to put yourself at the Sam Laporta table, see what you could add to get Sam Laporta, or go down. You could probably get Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, any of those tight ends with a cherry on top right now, and not lose much seasonal production when it comes to the fantasy points. You could probably even get 2 firsts for this guy, which I think you could do, because one of those firsts would probably end up being Brock Bowers. So I think that you could easily move on from Dalton Kincaid right now. I still think that they're going to add a weapon. I think his value is a bit high right now after the trade. And you have to remember that he was only 14th in points per game last year and didn't have a single game over 20 points. And had 4 games under 5 points. So it wasn't even like he was that crazy productive last year. I mean, he was decent, of course. I mean, 14th in points per game is nothing to scoff at for a rookie tight end. But I just think that we're hyping him up a lot right now. And I think you can move on. And I think that there's a lot of other tight ends around him that I would almost rather have, that you could actually get some added value on top. So I'm doing it. Sell Dalton Kincaid before the Bills add their new wide receiver. So those are my dynasty sells for you guys. My top 8 dynasty sells: Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, Devon Achane, Rachaad White, James Cook, Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, and Dalton Kincaid. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is another fun episode of Wake and Take, and I'm sure you guys were a great audience, even if I wasn't here live to see it. Thank you guys as always, and I'll be back live in the studio Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to Player Profiler so you can get notified when we go live. Everyone, have a fantastic Friday and an amazing weekend. I'll see you all Monday. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com. Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.